the Greens. This is really frightening. Sometimes it really does seem to me that half the country has gone stark staring mad and lost any idea that what you're being given by a government actually has to be paid for by you, by someone else, maybe your children, whatever. A perfect example this morning from one of the so-called Green independents. This time, Monique Ryan, the former Labor member who polls actually say could beat Treasurer Josh Frydenberg in his Melbourne seat of Kooyong. Ryan today was demanding we cut our emissions by 60% by 2030 without a thought of how to pay for it.
What about 60%? While you're starting on that, what would that cost to the economy? Which jobs would it see maybe go in some sectors? Is there any work you can point to on that?
Oh, look, I don't think this is something that's going to cost the economy at all. I don't agree with that at all. In fact, what we're going to do is we're going to reap the benefits of a transition to increased use of renewables in our economy. We're going to have the world's cheapest power that we will obtain from wind and solar, and it's not going to cost us.
Not going to cost us. You'd have to be absolutely mad to believe that. If it wasn't going to cost us, why isn't the whole world already on 100% renewables? Just go wind and solar, no cost. Really? When the CSIRO, our top scientific research body, says going totally wind and solar is going to cost us $500 billion. $500 billion. That's like the entire government budget for everything in a year. But the climate independents, they're just one thing. More dangerous by far are the Greens. Now the Greens, if the latest polls are right, they could end up holding the next government to ransom. They could hold the balance of power not just in the Senate, but in the lower house as well. Now about 10% of Australians actually support them. Uni students, public servants, ABC journalists, teachers, supposedly educated people. What does that say about us? Because that is incredible when you see what the Greens actually stand for. It is one big giveaway. Free stuff.
Fixing the housing affordability crisis, wiping student debt and also pushing for free childcare.
Now right there, that's only a little bit of their policy platform. We're looking just there at massive spending. That dental promise alone, more than $7 billion a year. Wiping out student debt, $6 billion a year. Free childcare, $5 billion a year. Add up the Greens' other promises, more money for foreign aid, plus another $1 billion a year sent overseas just for so-called climate reparations. On it goes, tens and tens of billions of dollars every year for extra spending. So, who is paying for all this?
Okay, let's just go to the first one, which is the dental care. And of course, I think many Australians would agree that's something that should be in Medicare, but it's got a big price tag on it, doesn't it? $77 billion over a decade, $7 billion a year. How would you pay for that?
Well, by making those billionaires and big corporations pay their fair share of tax. Look, at the moment, 1 in 3 big corporations in this country pays no tax at all. Just by closing a lot of those loopholes and making them pay their fair share, we can do things, making the big corporations pay their fair share, which brings in over $330 billion over the decade. Now,
steady there, soldier. So 1 in 3 big corporations aren't paying tax. Now, why would that be? Well, says the tax office, it's because they didn't make a profit or are carrying over a loss. It's not a loophole, it's not a scam. As the tax office says, just because an entity doesn't pay tax doesn't necessarily mean that there's tax avoidance or similar activity going on. We actually go and have looked into whether those losses are generated from commercial activities as opposed to tax avoidance arrangements. So the Greens' plan, then, is to take another $30 billion a year from companies that already are not making a profit. So how many of those companies would then go under? How many workers would lose their jobs? Okay, so Greens Leader Adam Bandt, well, he had another plan, more plans to raise this colossal amount of money to pay for his promises. How about an extra wealth tax on billionaires, plus more taxes on multinationals? But as it turns out, these so-called revenue raises, they're just as dodgy.
If we make the billionaires and big corporations pay their fair share of tax, we can fund those things. It'll tackle the cost of living pressures.
I have the costing here, and in fact it's in bold. It says there's a very high degree of uncertainty that you would ever get that money.
Well, no doubt the billionaires
that's true,
will...
that is what it says in your costing.
Well, it's no doubt that the billionaires will, and this has been independently costed by the Parliamentary Budget Office, and we get all of our
that's right.
proposals
That's the costing. That's the costing, by the way. That's the costing I just held up, and they say very high degree of uncertainty.
Well, that's on the billionaires' tax, because of course they'll do whatever they can to try and avoid paying tax.
You got it. This Greens leader, he hasn't got the foggiest idea, barely any interest in where the cash for his grand promises is coming from. He's just sort of wishing it from the sky. But the thing is with the Greens, this is just like compounding stupidity with one damn thing after another. The thing with the Greens is that they're not just promising to spend tens of billions of dollars extra every year, we're already running record debt. They are meanwhile destroying the economy that's meant to pay for it all. You take coal, that's our second biggest export earner, or gas, another big export earner. No, say the Greens, we want to get rid of coal and gas completely and replace them 100% with renewables. But as I showed you earlier, going 100% renewable, that's going to cost $500 billion just to set up. And killing the coal industry as well, that's going to cost us right now $100 billion a year just in lost exports alone. $100 billion. And at this stage, you're wondering, have the Greens gone stark staring insane? Or are the people voting for them really this crazy and irresponsible? Sort of a daddy will pay mentality? And we haven't even got to their equally dangerous social policies. I won't spend much time with them here, but how about their plan to get rid of our joint defence facilities with the US and to cut our defence spending by around 1/3? Because the Greens reckon, they tell us now, China's not actually a military threat to us. Who knew? Or how about their anti-white race policies, promising divide us by race politically and hit us with schemes to, and I quote, unpack white privilege and white fragility. And they want to make all public servants undergo race training because, they complain, white people in Australia hold most of the power, and mandated anti-racism will challenge white privilege and white fragility and reveal ingrained prejudices. So that's right, public servants are going to be forced to have Chinese-style struggle sessions to admit to the racism that must be inside their wicked white hearts. Plus, of course, there's the Green preaching of the global warming doom, their hatred of our history, and their calls for more bans of free speech. Yet this is the party which, if the polls are right, if Anthony Albanese doesn't drive Labor right over a cliff, this is the party that with Labor will control both the lower house and the Senate. Then you've got to wonder, how do we raise and educate millions of voters who look at all that and they say, makes sense to me.